service, he singled this woman out. He said, you know, I noticed that while I was speaking about the hereafter, you didn't really pay much attention to me. And he said, I just got one question for you. At your age, don't you start to think about the hereafter? And she looked up at the vision and said, Vicar, just this morning I walked into my sitting room and I was like, oh boy, what am I hearing? Anyhow.
We need to hear you. Yeah, go ahead. Why don't you focus?
This is why we're from here.
Anyhow,
What am I here after? And was on the streets of Atlanta,
it's a nice way to say it, since just before Thanksgiving of last year. Fortunately, with lots of prayers and help, I'm now off the streets, and for the most part, I'm working again, which is at 58 is a good thing. But getting back to what am I here at? When I had to move, my friend and I had to move out of an apartment because the gentleman who was paying our way, or helping pay our way, decided he didn't want roommates anymore, and he'd rather do stupid things. So we went to the Pine, and for 8 months I lived at the Pine, or stayed at the Pine. And something I kept on hearing about Harry's, this place called Harry's. Nobody calls it church on the street, it's Harry's. And probably still, even though Harry has sadly gone into an early retirement due to health problems, it probably won't forever be known as Harry's. Sorry, Vesta. You'll work on that. So Jerry and I started coming here for morning coffee. And we found out that they served a meal, not fed. As we tell people when they used to come up, y'all feeding? If you want to get fed, go to the zoo. We don't feed you, we serve you a meal. And the more I got into it, the more it brought me back to memories of high school. And I was blessed through a rich grandfather that I was sent to a boarding school in New England. But it wasn't one of these fancy, coat and tie, extra hand over shoulder, or something like that. But it was a self-help high school. So the more I got to learn about Pastor Andy's idea and church on the street, it was like, I'm home again. It's self-help. That, as Andy says every day at lunch, when we were serving lunches every day, if this is your first time, you are a guest. If this is not your first time, then you might want to think about sticking around and helping, chase a broom, sweep up after the meal, or help put the tables up, help clean up. Well, I got into it a little bit deeper than that, and did a lot of things. I worked for the church and did some repair work, did the tables, and then I started working my way up to being Harry's sous chef. What this did for me helped me. Not only being able to do something, but the one thing that I lacked was getting to know the Bible. Now, I come from a very religious family. My father was an Episcopal priest. My mother's father was a Baptist deacon. Her grandfather and great-grandfather and great-great-grandfather and great-great-great-grandfather were all Baptist pastors. So I got religion from both sides of the family. But the one thing that I lacked was getting to know the Bible. And being here at Church on the Street brought me closer back to the Bible. And I had a sad duty to perform a couple of weeks back, where a roommate who I did not know that well died. He had no relatives that cared about him. Nobody just, he might as well have been homeless, and nobody really cared about him. But for some strange reason, he left in his, best part of his will, left me in charge of taking care of his funeral and his burial. And so I'm like in a panic. I'm like, okay, I can deal with the arrangements and all that. I've done that a couple of times with my parents. Not a problem. But God, you're going to have to help me out here, because what do I say? What do I say when I go to that grave? Well, God gave me the answer, and I took care of it. And it was something, if I tried to do a year ago, I couldn't have done. Because that's one of the greatest things the Church on the Street has done for me. It has brought me closer to God. Not back to God, but closer to God through the writings of the Scriptures. So I'm very appreciative for everything that Church on the Street has done for me, and I know they're very appreciative for some of the things that I've done. And I wish and pray that Church on the Street will continue and have a very, very good